This is JP with Political Pop Culture, and this is a hot take. So this morning, just like every morning, I get up, I'm going through the news of the day, and I come across a really good article written by Jason Chaffetz over at Fox News. Now, look, I am not the biggest proponent of Fox News. I don't take this as an endorsement of Fox News, but this was a really good article written by a good reporter. And he touched on a lot of things that I have been talking about for the last month and that a lot of other people have been talking about for the last month, ever since King Joseph I was coronated back on the 20th of January. So I'm going to jump into this article. I'm going to touch on a few of the things that he says here. And then obviously I'd love to hear your opinion. So here's the article. Jason Chaffetz, Biden-Harris disastrous start. First month full of hypocrisy, scandal, and incompetence. Well, you knew they were going to be full of incompetence. Hypocrisy and scandal, well, that just comes with the Democratic administration. Mr. Chaffetz writes, the first full month of the Biden-Harris administration could not have gone worse. With no accomplishments to boast of, deepening national divisions, and an embarrassing array of hypocrisy and scandal, this administration's incompetence has been on full display. Well, yeah. Yeah. It's every day there's something new to talk about with this administration. It's unreal. The first thing that Mr. Chaffetz brings up here is the administration has nothing to show legislatively. Impeachment leaves the Democrats 0-2. After dedicating a week of the Senate's time to the effort, they departed for a week-long recess. Having wasted so much time on impeachment, the Senate is behind on confirming the administration's nominees, and to top it off, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer departed without finishing the promised COVID relief bill. Is anybody truly surprised? I mean, we knew that the Democrats were going to go after impeachment, even though they knew that there was a 0% chance that they would get a conviction. It was political theater. It was political theater designed to widen the division between people in this country. Here's the thing. If you are turned against your neighbor, if you feel that everybody who thinks differently politically than you is evil, then they become your enemy and you become theirs. And now you're fighting each other instead of fighting the government, which is, of course, exactly what they want. So I'm digressing. I apologize. Moving on. They're more interested in killing jobs than creating them, Mr. Chaffetz writes. Among the most far-reaching mistakes was the cancellation of the job-rich Keystone pipeline, the one move that will put nearly 11,000 people out of work, including 8,000 union workers whose unions enthusiastically endorsed Biden. I did a My Take on this a couple weeks back, and I covered this in depth. Killing the Keystone pipeline was a terrible idea for a lot of reasons. But in order to figure out why the Keystone pipeline was shut down, you need to think about this. Who benefits? Who benefits? If you close down the pipeline, who stands to gain from that shutdown? Well, obviously, not the 8,000 union workers. They're obviously losers in this deal. All of the people who have businesses that were supporting those workers, they're losers as well. But who wins? Well, if you don't transport the oil via the pipeline, how are you transporting it? If it doesn't go by the pipeline, it's going by truck or it's going by rail. Well, what railroad is the largest carrier of oil through this country? Well, that would be Burlington Northern Santa Fe, or BNSF. Who owns BNSF? Well, if you guessed the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, you get a gold star. And Warren Buffett's going to get hundreds of millions of dollars. Because Warren Buffett is a big supporter of Democrats like King Joseph I. And he owns BNSF. BNSF is going to do hundreds of millions of dollars in business transporting that oil from Canada down to Texas. Moving on. They're failing our kids. Before taking office, Biden said he would open schools within the first 100 days, Chaffetz writes. After taking office, the White House changed that goal to opening at least 50% of the schools to 1 day per week in-person learning. Comical, but ultimately sad and deceptive is what Mr. Chaffetz writes. What about following the science? The Biden-Harris administration has not supported the recommendations of its own CDC, which recommends that schools can open safely with mitigation strategies. Well, they're science deniers. Really? I've been calling the left science deniers for the last 10 years. And what's funny is they originated the phrase when they were talking about people who denied climate change on the right. Oh, you people are science deniers. The science is right there. You can't deny science. Yet here they are, not even listening to the recommendations of their own CDC. Yeah, they're failing the kids. Kids need to be back in school. Look at Florida. Look at Florida. Ron DeSantis has had the schools open the entire school year. And they're doing better than more than half the country in COVID numbers, even though they have the oldest or second oldest population in the country. Open the schools. Open the schools. Get our kids back to school and out of this funk, this mental funk that they're in. You cannot keep kids separated from each other like this. It should be criminal. Moving on, we have the destruction of women's sports. And this is something that I have talked about and that, frankly, we did a podcast, Irvin the Millennial and I did a political pop culture podcast, and this was a primary topic. If you have not heard it, I strongly recommend that you go back and listen. This is, we have a lot of great information in there, and we really, really break this subject down. So I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here, but again, go back, listen to that podcast. Listen to that podcast, and I think it will open your eyes. If you are not familiar with this story, you need to be, especially if, like me, you have daughters. Because what King Joseph did here, and I'll read this, hours after President Biden generally called for unity, he signed an executive order demanding transgender children be allowed to participate in all sports, forcing girls and women across the country to have to defeat biological males in order to be successful in their sports. Not only do girls have to compete against biological males in order to be successful in their sports, they're going to have to compete against them in trying to get scholarships. What? Yeah. Here's why. The way that this executive order was written, any school that accepts any federal funding has to abide, and they have to allow transgenders to compete as the gender that they identify as. So, as Irvin the Millennial said on our podcast, hey, if I'm a soccer coach, girls soccer team, women's soccer team, I'm going out and I'm actively recruiting. If I can find any male to female soccer players, I'm all over it. I'm going to be recruiting the hell out of them because they're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger. So now your girls, and let me bring this home for just a minute. I have a daughter who plays a sport, and it's a sport that if she had to compete directly against a biological male, she would never win, ever. It's ridiculous that the Democratic Party, who claims to be about women and women's rights, absolutely destroyed women's sports with this executive order. Why is this not a national scandal? Why are people not talking about this every single day until this order is rescinded? It's disgusting. And if you have a daughter, I'm sorry. Promises made, not kept. Prior to the election, Joe Biden mocked the overuse of executive orders. Oh my God. Now he sets records for the number of orders, so much so that even the New York Times published an editorial in January entitled "Ease Up on the Executive Actions, Joe." Now the number has grown to more than 50 in less than a month. 50, more than 50 executive orders. We are completely eliminating the other two branches of government. Legislative branch, to hell with them. Judicial, who needs them? Now, King Joseph is sitting atop his perch in the Oval Office, and he is ruling through executive order. 50 executive orders in less than a month. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, and it's wrong. This is not what anybody voted for. But this is certainly not what the majority of people who put Joe Biden in office in the first place voted for. Mr. Chaffetz continues, despite another promise that Biden would fire staff, quote, on the spot if they disrespected others, quote, no ifs, ands, or buts. He violated that pledge just days later. Deputy White House Press Secretary T.J. Ducklo allegedly berated Tara Palmieri of Politico by telling her, I will destroy you. Evidently for pursuing a story about how Ducklo might have been having a personal relationship with another reporter who writes about the White House. Ducklo's punishment was 1 week without pay and an apology. With even the Democrats snickering, Ducklo eventually resigned, but he was not fired. Well, why wasn't he fired on the spot? Joe? No ifs, ands, or buts. Why wasn't he fired? This is the Deputy White House Press Secretary threatening a member of the press for doing her job. How dare she? How dare she do her job? Well, how dare you, King Joseph I, how dare you not do your job? You said that you would fire people on the spot if they disrespected others. Does threatening to destroy somebody not qualify as disrespecting? Sounds pretty disrespectful to me. Moving on. So much for ethics. Promises to be the most ethical administration since dinosaurs roamed the earth took just a few days to break. Well, okay. Well, I guess Joe would know. I mean, he's been around since dinosaurs roamed the earth. Vice President Harris's niece, Mina Harris, has sought to cash in on her aunt's newfound power. There's a shock. Harris has a book and a clothing line bearing her aunt's name. Despite warnings from government attorneys, Mina Harris flew to the inauguration on a private jet and touted it on social media. Now, cashing in and flaunting it is the trend for the Harris family. Yeah, the Biden family too. The president's son, Hunter Biden, is under federal investigation, and Frank Biden, Joe Biden's brother, is also under a cloud of suspicion. Frank Biden, who is not an attorney, joined the Berman Law Group, where they've been running advertisements touting Frank Biden's proximity to the administration officials and federal lawmakers. In other words, I'm the president's brother. Hire us, and I can make things happen for you. Oh my God, you're blatantly selling influence. You're selling influence. Oh my God. There was a poll. And I should have looked it up and had it here available for me, and I apologize that I didn't. But there was a poll shortly after the election that asked Democratic voters if they knew about the Hunter Biden story. And the majority did not. And what was really interesting, what was telling about that poll was when informed about the story, the majority of the Democratic voters who had not heard about the story ahead of the election said that they would not have voted or not have voted for Biden had they known about that story ahead of time. The media has been complicit. Not only complicit, the media has been a propaganda arm for Biden. You know, they attack Trump ad nauseum for the last 4.5 years. And then they're carrying water for the Biden administration, and before they were the administration, for the Biden campaign, by not going after Hunter Biden, and now not absolutely tearing Frank Biden apart. I'm the president's brother. Hire us, and I can make things happen for you. Are you kidding me? I mean, unbelievable, unbelievable. Every bit of this is true, and every bit of it is disgusting. So moving on. Pandemic failure. Mr. Chaffetz writes, battling COVID is perhaps the country's most pressing matter, but as he prepares to resuscitate the economy, Biden picked someone to oversee federal unemployment who lost millions of dollars in pandemic aid to Nigerian fraudsters. Do I even need to say anything, or can you just write your own jokes here? Nigerian fraudsters. Okay, I'm just going to go on to the next section here. Meanwhile, Biden has imposed travel restrictions on Americans while creating a magnet for illegal immigration. Reports show tens of thousands of unvaccinated immigrants are streaming from Mexico and Central America despite the pandemic, even as the rest of us have to be tested to enter the country. They are talking about amnesty now for 20 million illegal aliens. I want you to think about that number for just a second. 20 million illegal aliens. That is 5 times the population of the city of Los Angeles. That is basically the population of the state of Florida. Amnesty. Come on in. Come on in. No, we're not going to prosecute you. We're not going to throw you out of the country. We're not going to deport you. No, come on. Come on. Amnesty. Amnesty. 20 million people. Yep. There you go. Full frontal attack. Moving on here. Full frontal attack on the Constitution. This is the last bit, I promise. The Second Amendment is already under attack with Biden vowing legislation and executive orders. Well, big surprise, he's vowing executive orders because that's how this guy's going to run his administration. The administration's support for speech restrictions, text censorship, and invasive surveillance don't bode well for the future of liberty. We are only 1 month into the Biden-Harris administration. The array of scandal, incompetence, and deception is stunning. It is definitely that. I will say there is one bright side. So the Second Amendment on being under attack, we knew ahead of time that Biden was going to go after the Second Amendment. And he's going to say, oh, I'm not going after the Second Amendment. But he's going after the Second Amendment. I'm going after the NRA, not the Second Amendment. So we know that they want to come after the guns. We know they not only want to come after the guns, they want to come after the ammunition. They want a national gun registry, and this is H.R. 127, House Resolution 127. And this is something that Irvin the Millennial and I are working on. We're going to do a full podcast talking about H.R. 127 and gun control. So keep your eye out for that. For right now, just know that H.R. 127 means, or what's in 127 is they want you to have to register your guns. You have to be able to tell people where your guns are. There's going to be a public registry, which means that your neighbors can get online and see how many guns you have. Also, you're going to have to register your ammunition. You're going to have to register your ammunition and tell everybody how much you have and where it is, because that's not dangerous at all. The attack on the Second Amendment is absolutely unbelievable. But there is a little bit of good news. Like I said, there's a little bit of good news, and I'm going to show you one more quick article, again from Fox News. But Indiana, the Indiana House votes to eliminate gun license to carry handgun in state. The Indiana House voted Monday to eliminate the license to carry a handgun in the state, an apparent victory, at least temporary, for supporters of Second Amendment gun rights. Now, I have been one of those guys that for years has said the Second Amendment is my carry permit. And the people of Indiana, it looks like they're voting that way. So hopefully anybody in Indiana, man, contact your representatives and tell them how awesome this is, and you absolutely want it. This is the way it should be throughout the country. I can tell you my state, I have to have a permit. I have a permit. I'm not happy about it. So anyway, this is we're at the end of this article. There's been a lot of stuff to unpack here. I actually went quite a bit longer than I intended, and I apologize for that. But this is every bit of this is verifiable. If I tell you what, if you have friends, family, coworkers who are Biden supporters, who bring up politics, you now have some bullet points. You have now got some information to just strike back and say, okay, well, what about this? What about this? What happened to his ethics? Why haven't they opened the schools? Why are they killing these jobs? Why are they making Warren Buffett, who at one time was the richest man in the world, why are they making him richer? These are all great questions to ask Biden supporters. But you have my take on this. You have my take on these hot takes. I would love, absolutely love to hear your opinion. So please leave me a comment and tell me what you think. If you want to expand on this, if you want me to expand on this, if you want to tell me how wrong I am and what a fool I am, hey, I've heard it before, put it in the comments. Let me know. Otherwise, join the cult at Pol Pop Cult on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Rumble, all over the place. We are all over the place at Pol Pop Cult. Again, we would love to hear what you have to say, whether you love us, whether you hate us. Let us know what you think. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you again soon.